Hello, everybody. Welcome to our last week looking at poetry together. We are going to be doing To a Mouse on turning up her nest with the plow. And it's by Robert Burns, and it was written in November 1785. I specifically included that it was from November because you're going to get this sense of it's cold outside, and so that will kind of help give you actually a time frame for it. And you'll see that here is the original. Robert Burns was notoriously Scottish, and he didn't necessarily think to be a good poet that he had to conform to English sort of poetry and vocabulary. And so you can kind of see his first line, "We sleek it, cowering timorous beastie," instead of small, sleek, cowering, timorous beast. You can see in the original, he used the sort of vocabulary of a Scotsman, which is what he relished and was known for, celebrating his heritage. And so we won't be working with the original because we wouldn't understand it quite as much, not knowing the sort of Scottish cant. However, we will work with the translation. And the if you want to listen to the original just for fun, the link is on the page. And so we're going to be looking for, as we read, what are the difficulties? What difficulties does the mouse suffer? So give me some quotes. So we'll be looking for those quotes and highlighting them in pink. And then what similarities between mice and men does the narrator bring up? Because yes, this is To a Mouse, but there is a sort of idea in there that there's some plight between mice and men here. And what is it? And what sort of a metaphor is he trying to create? And why does the narrator envy the mouse? We see there towards the end. And do you agree with his thoughts as well? So you might see it says of mice and men. That's our segue. Next week, you'll be doing an author search on John Steinbeck, the author of Mice and Men. And then we'll start reading in 2 weeks, and you'll have a chance to pick up your novels here pretty soon. But this is kind of going to lead us into Of Mice and Men, and the ideas of this poem can be seen throughout the book. So kind of know that and remember it so we can carry it into the future. All right, so let's start here at the beginning. Small, sleek, cowering, timorous beast. Oh, what a panic is in your breast. You need not start away so hasty with hurrying scamper. I would be loath to run and chase you with murdering plow staff. Got a little serious there at the end. Now, the mouse, what is he experiencing? So, he's cowering, he's panicking, he's scampering away, and he's saying, I don't want to chase you with the murdering plow staff. So by plow staff, we're meaning farm equipment, just a plow. So we're seeing there's a human and there's a mouse in this poem. And the human is writing this poem to a mouse. And the human is plowing their field, basically tilling up all of the earth with his plow. And as he's doing it, the mice are kind of running because the mice will build their nests inside of the dirt in the field. And they're running and scampering about and they're panicking. And he's saying, I'm loath, I hate to have to run and chase you with this murdering plow. I'm trying not to kill you. Uh, but I'm truly sorry, man's dominion has broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. So he's saying, I'm sorry, I'm bigger than you, and you've created your natural little house here inside of the field. And I know that you must think bad of me because I'm startling you and tearing up your home. And he's saying, we're fellow mortals, in nature and in this social union. And I'm sorry that I'm having to plow up the field, but I have to do it. And I doubt not sometimes, but you may still. What then, poor beast? You must live. So he's saying, yeah, I am doing the wrong thing here by tilling up your house in the field. But I know you steal from me sometimes, kind of go into the shed and take some of my seeds and things. But you must live, and I must plow the field because I must live. And an odd ear in 24 sheaves, in a small request, I will get a blessing with what is left and never miss it. And so he's saying, it's fine if you take some of my things. I know that you have to eat to live just as I do. It says, your small house, too, in ruin. So he maybe saved the life of the mouse as they're going out, they're scampering, but he ruined their house as he tilled up the earth. Uh, its feeble walls the wind were scattering, and nothing now but, not but, to build a new one, of course, green, grass green, and bleak December's winds coming, both bitter and keen. So it was written in November. So he's saying he's tilling up the field, and he's saying you're just going to have to take what's left from the harvest and the green grass, and the wind's coming, and it's bitter and it's terrible, and you're going to have to rebuild your house, and you're going to have to make a new one because I had to till up the field just like you have to steal from me. You saw the fields laid bare and wasted, a weary winter coming fast. And cozy here beneath the blast, you thought to dwell till crash, the cruel plow passed out through your cell. So he's saying you were warm and cozy inside of your house that you built, and the winter's coming, but you were cozy until crash, that terrible thing that happened, which was our journal this week. Tell me about that time that you made a plan and everything went wrong, the farmer tills up your field, so to speak. And that small bit heap of leaves and stubble has cost you many a weary nibble. Now you are turned out for all your trouble, without house or holding to endure the winter's sleety dribble. So he knows that the mice not only made their leaves, but they also were keeping their food in their house. And he knows that in tilling up the ground, he's tilling up their house and their food, and now they're left out in the winter's cold. It says, but Mouse, you are not alone in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men often go askew, some people say astray, and leave us nothing but grief and pain for promised joy. So this starts that comparison we're talking about. So, but Mouse, you are not alone. And he's mentioned this a little bit earlier where he said that we are fellow mortals here on the earth, earth-born companion. There's some sort of struggle that all things and creatures on the earth have together. And he's saying you are not alone. He said, although proving foresight may be vain, like they built their house and then they stored up their food and they made the best plan. Like it was a good plan to wear out the winter. And how are the mice to know that that they're making their house and in a field that's going to get tilled? They really don't. They're so much smaller compared to humans. They couldn't probably see the house, see the field because of just their smallness. And so he's saying those best schemes, those best plans you made often go askew. You just never know when the plow is coming, when that bad thing is going to happen that completely like decimates whatever your plan may be. So this is why people use this as the common phrase, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. Or sometimes people just say, like, when something bad happens, the best laid plans, people will say, or the best laid plans of mice and men. And then the kind of quoting this poem, and leave us nothing but grief and pain for promised joy. So we were promised joy in all of our plannings and our foresight. And now we have nothing but grief and pain because we're out in the cold winter. But still you are blessed. So this is where he's kind of saying, I envy the mouse compared with me. So we are all mice and men in this together, not alone, companions of this earth. And here the farmer just tilled up the man's field by saying, you are blessed in comparison with me. The present only touches you. So really, we're thinking about the nature of a mouse. They're probably not going to dwell and cry about it. He said, but oh, I backwards cast my eye on prospects dreary. So if his house got tilled up 5 years ago, he's thinking of the time his house got tilled up and living in the past and thinking with that backwards cast eye about all of the terrible things that happened and dwelling on them. And forward, though I cannot see, I guess in fear. So he's saying there's some sort of blessing in being able to only live in the moment. And perhaps maybe even the author is saying like that he wishes that he could only live in the moment because he looks backwards and thinks about the bad things that happened and then also sees forward to guess and to fear. So he's saying he envies the mouse, but maybe also he's saying that it is a good and a a good thing to live in the moment and say, "Oh, this is terrible," and then perhaps move on. It's kind of like we've been talking about this theme of surviving, persevering, and overcoming, and and just talking about that in different ways. But, here he has this idea of perhaps maybe the best thing to do is to sit on the grief and let it happen, but not perhaps be the human that is constantly thinking of the worst parts of the past and the worst parts of the future. Perhaps living in the present and moving on from there, which is something that we saw in our poem If by Kipling, and also we saw in Invictus as well. And so kind of think about, do you agree with him? Like, is this kind of a good sort of mindset to have of I'm going to live in the present moment? Yes, make the best plans that I can, but perhaps not dwell on the dreary and the fear. Um, do you think it's a good plan? You could also, I would like to have about 10 sentences. And so if you're kind of looking to add more, you can talk about how does it fit in with this idea of surviving, persevering, and overcoming as well. All right. Thank you guys.